This is Mommy Sexual reporting for duty. So essentially, I basically got a comment where somebody was asking me, should I watch Nanoha? Now, for those of you that have no idea what a Nanoha is, no, it's not a special kind of food, or it's not a sex position or anything like that. Basically, Nanoha is an anime that came out, I believe, in the early 2000s. It essentially has 3 seasons, and the official name is Mahou Shoujo Lyrical Nanoha, and this is an anime that I recently got into, and it has become a massive favorite. And essentially, I wanted to make a video talking about this series and to hopefully help some people who might be curious about getting into Nanoha, how to get into it, and what to expect should they give this series a shot. So one of the things that you might have heard about Lyrical Nanoha is the fact that a lot of people consider this to be very similar to Madoka Magica. And to be honest with you, I feel like that this is pretty accurate to say in some ways. Without a doubt, if you watch Nanoha and you've seen Madoka, you can definitely see how these two shows kind of parallel together. In fact, Geno Urobuchi states in an interview that I will show on the screen, Lyrical Nanoha specifically served as influence for writing the story for Madoka Magica. So without a shadow of a doubt, Lyrical Nanoha has definitely influenced Madoka Magica. Now, as far as how to watch the series, in my personal opinion, if you're somebody who's curious about watching Lyrical Nanoha, the very first place that I would start would be the very first movie of Lyrical Nanoha that came out in 2010. Essentially, what this movie does is that it takes the original first season of the anime and it essentially makes it into a movie. You could kind of say that the movie, it's sort of a recap of all the events that happened within the first season. Now, normally I wouldn't recommend watching an anime movie before watching the original series, but I feel like if you're somebody who's watching Nanoha today, it's better to watch the movies because, truth be told, even though I personally love the original Lyrical Nanoha first season, I did have some issues with it when I first attempted to watch it, and I feel like that if you're just coming into this series in 2017, then you're going to have some issues with it, partly because of the time in which Nanoha came out. Nanoha came out during the early 2000s, and as you can probably imagine, the quality of anime back then is different than what it is now. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who really care a lot about how an anime looks visually. So I feel that if you're like a newer anime fan, you may have some difficulty getting into the first season of Nanoha because of how it looks visually. And the movie is great because it's in HD and the quality is more up to date and modern. But another reason why I think the movie is better to watch than the original first season of Nanoha is because of the fact that while I do appreciate the very first Nanoha season, one issue that I definitely can see that it does have is the fact that it starts off very slow. Like, I would say the first 6 episodes of Nanoha have this slice of life feeling to it, and if you're somebody who's into slice of life anime, you're into animes that have kind of like a relaxing feel, a relaxing tone, I would definitely recommend watching the first season if you don't have a problem with that. But if you're somebody who is more interested in really having something dramatic unfold, something more action oriented, definitely would recommend the movie. The original first Nanoha season really takes some time before it gets going into what it becomes. You could essentially say that the first few episodes of Nanoha sort of have that whole classic magical girl buildup. You could say it's like you have your main female lead in the form of Nanoha, who is essentially becoming a magical girl, and we're kind of seeing her getting used to her powers and her mission. So Nanoha has a little bit of this monster of the week episodic nature at the beginning. I would say when you get to episode 6 or 7, that is essentially when the first season really starts to pick up, because that is when the dark magical girl known as Fate comes into the show. So it's at this point that I feel like the series really picks up. But what makes the movie great is that rather than having this really slow magical girl buildup, it essentially jumps straight into the action and the dramatic bits, which you will essentially get because Fate makes an appearance a lot sooner in the movie than she does in the first season. The movie is really good because rather than having that slow buildup part, it essentially rushes through it, and you essentially essentially get the best bits of the first season within the movie. So you could essentially say that what makes the movie great is that if you're trying to get a crash course in Nanoha, the movie will essentially give you everything that you probably need to know, and it'll help you to determine whether or not you should continue, while the first season might throw off some people because of the fact that it's outdated in terms of how it looks quality-wise, and at the same time, pacing is very slow at the beginning, but the movie doesn't have that problem. It's HD quality, it's very up-to-date, and things pick up essentially right from the get-go, so you don't really have any slow moments, and there's no real issue with pacing. So yeah, if you're looking to get into Nanoha, my suggestion to you would be to watch the very first movie, and if you find yourself really enjoying the first movie, like if you liked what was happening and you want to see more, then I would definitely recommend to watch the second movie. And for those that don't know, the second movie of Nanoha is actually a recap of the second season. Now, I'm going to basically suggest that you watch the second movie first for basically the same reasons why I would recommend the first Nanoha movie versus the original season. And the reason that I say this is because the second movie, once again, tells a story that you can watch right away versus if you watch the whole second season. Now, truth be told, I personally preferred the second season as opposed to the movie, but I still think the movie is good for people who are trying to get into Nanoha because, again, you're basically getting a complete story within 2 hours. You don't have to watch a whole bunch of episodes. You just have to watch a movie. Maybe you can sit back, watch it with your friend, and you'll essentially get the gist of what the second season of Nanoha has to offer, just like you will if you watch the first movie. If you really find yourself invested in the characters, or if you want to know more about the universe, or you want to see more things happen, then this is basically the part where I would suggest either going back and watching the first 2 seasons of Nanoha, because even if you've seen both the movies, the first 2 seasons still have a chance to offer something for you, because the original anime, the story is told in a slightly different manner as opposed to the movie. Like, for example, in the original Nanoha season, you're essentially getting the story of Nanoha being told from Nanoha's perspective. So you essentially can learn a little bit more about Nanoha's life, as well as who she is as a character and how she grew to become the kind of person that she is, as opposed to the first movie where you're essentially getting the same story, but it's being told from the perspective of Fate, who is essentially the secondary protagonist slash antagonist of the story. So if you really find yourself enjoying the first 2 movies and you find yourself really wanting to dig more into the characters, and plus you'll basically watch the story in the most proper way that you can if you go back and watch the first season. Likewise, when it comes to the second season versus the second movie, if you enjoyed the second movie, I definitely encourage you to go back and watch the second season, because in my personal opinion, the second season is actually better than its movie counterpart because it takes its time in developing some of its new characters. One of the things that I love about the Nanoha franchise is the characters themselves, because truth be told, the story of Nanoha is not the most creative and interesting thing in the world, and the reason that I say this is because Nanoha is one of those types of animes that is a product of its time, meaning during the early 2000s, it was a very unique magical girl anime because of what was out at that time. Nowadays, there have been so many different, dark magical girl type shows that Nanoha doesn't really stand out as much, but at the very least, I still feel like that when it comes to the characters and how they're represented, I feel like Nanoha still offers something special. And the second season, if you're the kind of person who likes new characters and you want a show that's really going to help you feel invested and feel a personal connection, then I definitely feel like the second season does this very, very well. Because for me personally, it's very difficult for me to find anime characters that I really can bond and connect with, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way that they're written. And I'm not going to say that the second season of Nanoha has the best written characters in anime, but for me personally, I was able to really invest myself in them. So again, if you like the second movie, I definitely would encourage you to go back and watch the original second season as well as the original first season. But again, I feel like this should come after you've seen the first 2 Nanoha movies, because I feel like if you're a new fan, this is going to help you determine whether or not you really want to invest in this series, because even though I love Nanoha, it's one of my favorite anime series of all time, I know it's not for everybody, and I feel like that before you really take the time to invest in the story, you probably should watch the first 2 movies, and then from there, if you like it, then go back and watch the first 2 seasons so you can get the story from a different perspective, and at the same time, the second season sort of takes its time more so in developing the characters. Another option that I will give to you, because truth be told, let's say that you're somebody who's seen the first movie, who's seen the second movie, and maybe you don't necessarily want to go back and invest in the original anime for whatever the reason may be. I also would very much recommend the 3rd season of Nanoha, because truth be told, the 3rd season of Nanoha is my absolute favorite, and I'm not going to spoil it, but essentially the 3rd season of Nanoha features the main characters of Nanoha grown up. This is one of the things I love about the 3rd season, is that you essentially have these characters in the previous movies and in the previous seasons as little girls, and you actually have a chance to see what they're like when they're grown adults. Now to me, this is almost like equivalent to what Madoka Magica would be like if you essentially had all the main characters grow up into like adult women, and you're actually seeing them fight and interact in this world. And Nanoha actually does this. It's basically the first magical girl anime that I'm aware of where you actually have their characters grow up and actually are working in society, and it's just really great because you see so much development with a lot of these characters. And in my opinion, the 3rd season has much better fight scenes. It's a lot more dramatic. There's a lot more depth to it. It's not as simple as the previous Nanoha entries, so I definitely highly recommend the 3rd season. If you find yourself watching the first 2 movies and you don't necessarily want to watch the first 2 seasons, and despite the fact that it's also a show that came out in the early 2000s, you can watch and find it in HD, and it's really great. So yeah, definitely watch the 3rd season of Nanoha. So I guess that's gonna pretty much be it. I just wanted to quickly make a video helping people who might be interested in getting into Nanoha, but maybe they didn't necessarily know where to start. I hope this video helps out anybody who is interested in getting into the Nanoha franchise. And have you seen Lyrical Nanoha? If so, let me know in the comments below. What do you think of it, and how would you suggest that people go about watching it? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. This is Mommy Sexual signing out. Peace.